how can we make sure that more profit and more money, more cash stay in the company at the end of the day? If those positions are negative, how can we get it to break even? And if they're positive, how can we get it to more positive, right? How can we move the company forward? So maybe let's get to the first kind of profit lever. So those are on the side of revenue generation. So the first tool that you have to increase your revenue is basically just to increase the price of your product or service to your existing customers, right? But that's a complex thing in this market where everyone's trying to cut costs. How do you bring in a price increase? So Uwais, I know you're ready for this difficult one. Is it even possible to talk to customers about price increases right now across the board?
It can be a difficult conversation, but if you can show that you're adding more value for slightly more cost, if the customer sees that the customer is getting a lot more value, they might be willing to pay that increase in cost, especially if you're the only one offering it in your field. If you are much better than your competitors, there's no reason why you couldn't increase your costs slightly to but provide a lot more value. And it might mean that not a lot, maybe perhaps not as much time that you're spending, but from the customer's point of view, they can definitely see that they're getting more value. I think that would probably be the best thing that I would recommend. Also, realizing what sets you apart from your competitors is something that might make you increase your costs.
I love it. So kind of a unique selling proposition to make sure that your business stands out, and just the perceived value from clients. Like, how can you up the perceived value to be able to justify higher costs? Definitely, I like those. So the other thing that you can use to move your revenue up is to sell more, right? To increase the volume of products or services that you sell at the end of the day. So how does one go about increasing revenue in totality? How can one sell more? Who have I got on this? Donna.
Yeah, hello. Very interesting one, and I think very applicable to all of us. So if you're in a product or services industry, if you're in a product industry with looking at the quantities of produce sold, and if we're in a services industry, it might be amount of billable hours or value added to clients. I think from a sales point of view, to almost implement a sales culture at your firm, typically you would have had you might have a sales department and sales reps, but to really adopt a sales culture, it's not only the sales guys that needs to do sales during this time. Culture trumps strategy. So if you can build a culture of people raving employees understanding your products and services, and that they are also keen to advocate your product or service, I think that could also ramp up sales. Then just from a purely, let's say, from a bottleneck point of view, let's say you're in the consulting industry or so, there might be some inefficiencies in your team that prohibits them from having more excess time available for consulting or so, or going on focusing on business development. So a good way of, in the consulting industries is almost relying on templates and tools and standard operating procedures to fast forward the value add and making sure that the client experience more value with lesser amount of time focus on the mundane and non-value add area. So just bringing that automation. Then lastly, if you are wanting to boost volume, and I'm not a sales specialist, but really just focusing on your sales function, making sure that leads don't fall through the crack, the basics, and repeat business and maintaining existing clients with superb customer experience, because it's quite expensive to chase new clients. The client acquisition of new clients is very expensive. So just to maintain your existing quantities, that during this time might be your main focus, so yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's just one way of a few thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, preserve existing revenue and find a couple of avenues to make sure that you can either prove more value to ask a higher price for it, or figure out ways in which to be able to sell more through best practice principles.
Hey, Lau here, one of the founders of Outsourced CFO. If you enjoyed this video, make it official. Click subscribe.